Welcome to the fifth video of our driver training tutorial series. Today we're going to have a look at the MoTeC ADL2 software and how we can use this to analyze data collected from the car. This data can be used to improve driver performance or potentially monitor the car's health. So you can see here we have this MoTeC ADL2 standard software. That's what we're going to be looking at today. The MoTeC ADL2 Pro software, the team currently does not have the licensing requirements on its MoTeC to log in the Pro version, so we're restricted currently to the standard version. However, this is something that the team's going to look at in the future. So we'll open up the MoTeC ADL2 standard software at the moment, and we'll click into Circuit Workspace. Alright, so once you open up your MoTeC software, you'll be given this blank screen. So you're going to have to import or open your log files. So you have to go up here to the import button, and you have to find wherever your log file is. Mine's just on the desktop there. You can see this was a track day from back in May. So I'll open this one, and once you open it up, you'll be given these series of traces of data. Yours might look a bit different depending on how you have it set up. Alright, so once we're in here, we can see that we have these different worksheets, they're called, at the top. So if we go through these different worksheets, these are some of the ones that are given, I guess, as standard by the standard software. You can add your own worksheets. If I go new worksheet, I can add my own worksheet. So I'm right clicking up there to add a new worksheet, and I right click on this blank screen to add any of these other functions, which we'll look at a bit later. Alright, so I'll jump back to this first one, which is the driver tab. Once we're in the MoTeC software, there's a bunch of different shortcut keys we can use. I'm not going to go through all of these today. However, if we press F1, so if we click in anywhere in the blank space in here and then press F1, you'll get given this help folder, and there's a keyboard shortcut tab in there with all these different shortcuts we can use once we're in our MoTeC software. So some of those are pretty handy, so I definitely recommend having a look over that. Alright, so usually the first thing you'll want to do once you've imported a set of data is to create a track and create laps from that. So to do that, we'll go up to this track editor tab up here. Alright, so once we're in our track editor, we can generate our track. So if we go down here to generate track, you can see it's actually been already generated as I've analyzed this data set before. But how I would do that is I can either use the GPS coordinates, the latitude and longitude, or the lateral G and speed. So in this case, I'll just use the lateral G and speed. I would click on lateral G-force, make sure that's a closed track, and press OK. And you can see it's already generated our track there. But if you hadn't done this previously, you would see the track being generated. You can see some of these straight lines are where the team was doing some brake testing throughout the day. And this line up here was where they pushed it to the pits to get charged. So that's some of the different reasons why there's some outliers around our majority of the track. So I'll click OK. Once we've done that, we can go up to the lap editor here, these two flags, left click on that. At the moment, it's just one long lap. We can generate laps using our GPS data. So if I click use GPS data, just click execute, you can see it's now broken up our data into 67 laps. So if I zoom out using my scroll wheel, I can see all these red beacons where it's inputted, where our different laps would be starting and finishing. Alright, so at the moment you can see on this x-axis here, I am looking at the data in terms of meters traveled. I can also analyze this in terms of the time. If I click this little clock up here, time/distance. Now you can see the x-axis is covered in the running time. Usually you'll find that distance is more appropriate for the type of data analysis that you want to do, but it's just a different option that we can choose. On our left hand side here, we have three tabs. The first tab up here has our data. So you can see this is our data file that we've opened. It's been broken down into all these different laps. And the red dot here, so if I click on one of these to make a red dot, that's now our reference lap, and we are analyzing that lap. We have another tab, the next tab down is called the channels tab, and this shows all the different types of channels that our car has either logged or calculated. So the physically logged channels are these ones with a little sine wave, and the ones with a calculator are mathematical channels that have used these other log channels in some sort of combination to create a mathematical channel. So if I was to left click on any of these, so for perhaps GeForce Lat, double click on it, you'll see that it pops up down here. If I want to remove any of these, I can double click on them again. So nice and easy. If I want to edit the channel, I just left click on it and you'll see this little white dot appear next to it. Then I'll right click and go down to channel properties. You'll see a bunch of these different properties come up where I can change, such as the display limits. I can change the color of the line, the amount of decimal places that it goes to, even the name of the channel. So different things you can edit about the channel there. Another thing that's interesting is the scale and offset. So if I right click on the channel again, I can see this scale offset tool. So at the moment you'll see our brake pressure goes from roughly 45 to 55 on that lap. Oh, that's just a certain lap. But you can see here that it's actually going over 100%, and what appears to be 0 is actually at around 46. So what I might want to do, for example, is if I right click on here, I'll scale it, and I want to go an offset of minus 46. I'll apply that, and you can see our brake pressure has now gone down to 0. We could also put a scale on that. So if I right click on here again, I could scale that up, say maybe 1.3 or something. Then it would be closer to 100. But in mind that that also does affect your offset as well. These are primarily should be adjusted in the calibration stage in your MoTeC dashware software before you log data. However, if you've already logged a bunch of data like we had here, and you realize that it's calibrated wrong, this is an easy way to kind of fix that calibration. Alright, so yeah, I can scroll in and scroll out with my middle mouse wheel, and if I want to transfer through my data, I can use this little slider at the bottom of the screen there. Alright, so there's a lot of different other features that you'll pick out when you're having a play around. There's just too many things to go through in one video. So another thing that might be interesting is up here in component properties. This shows the different groups that are on our screen at the moment, the different channels that are present. If we want to add a channel, we can also add a channel in here. So for example, we might want to have the G-force in the lat direction, and it's added that channel there. Once we click OK, we can see that has been applied. Go back to component properties. We might want to add the G-force longitudinal. Click OK. We can see that's been applied there. Again, we can see the scaling must have been wrong when we calibrated that G-force because it's zeroed at a minus 1.1. So we could adjust that with another scale factor, an offset factor, sorry. If we go up here to component properties, say we didn't want to analyze them on the same axis like they've defaulted to, we could click here, add group, left click on one of these and move it down to the next group. Now we have them each on their own individual axis. Another tool that might be useful is mathematical equations. So if we go here to the maths with a little calculator symbol, we can add expressions which basically we can use our logged or mathematical channels that we have and create a new channel from that. So for example, if we wanted to do lap times long for whatever reason, we could do double click on lat g-force times the longitudinal. We could create an expression for that, and we could log a channel for that. With the MoTeC standard software, you can only use your standard operators, such as your plus, times, minus, divide. In the MoTeC Pro software, you can use more advanced functions such as an absolute value or assign or something like that. Alright, another thing that might be useful is to go up here, if we go to one of our laps, to the view tab, we can show track, and then you can see sort of track layout, and you can see as we've driven around that lap where we've traveled around that lap. So you can see that run, we must have done the brake testing because we've kind of gone around the outside. Alright, another thing we can do, which might be useful, is at the moment our data is in one big data set. We've broken it down into different laps, but what might be interesting is to break it down further into different data sets on a driver basis. So we then can compare that same driver with future days to see how they've progressed. So we want to split the data in some sort of way. The easiest way I found to do this is if we go to this engine channel, I'm looking at the motor temperature of one of our motors here. Obviously when our driver's going out on track, you'll see the motor temperature rising. When they come in the pits, you'll see the kind of steep fall and sitting stationary for a bit. Next driver goes out, and so you can easily see there where our different drivers have gone in and out of the car. So these are the areas that we want to split the data. So I'll place my cursor, so just left clicking, I'll place my cursor here, and I want to split the data. I'll go to File, Split Data, and then we have our left and our right segment. I can add in what driver was driving each segment. So if I have the left segment here, if I knew that Tom was my first driver for the day, I could write in, caps lock on, I could write in Tom, click OK, close my original, open new file. So it's going to open two new files, my left and my right side. I could change the file name if I wanted as well. And you see here, this is my left side of the file where I had my first driver, Tom, in the car. And you can see when we go in our data tab, we have Tom who did 6 laps, and we have our other main data file that has all our other drivers. So then we'd go along to our next segment. We'd go File, Split Data. Now, if we knew the left-hand side, if this section was Sage, we could put in Sage as our driver. Close original, open new files, split. And we do that for all of our data until we have each of it in our different drivers. And then we can analyze those drivers better against each other. Alright, so we can then, another way that we can also edit our details is to go up to this details button up here. We can then see our we have our 3 different sessions that we have, bearing in mind that we've split it up into our 3 different sessions. You can see the fastest lap time on each, the amount of laps in each. You can see who was driving in each, and I can put in different information here, such as the weather, temperatures, the track conditions, so that we can filter by these options later. So once you have a large amount of data to go through, it's very important that you manage it well to be able to go back later and look at and find what you're looking for. Alright, so if I wanted to analyze these 2 drivers against each other, what we'll often do is have like a typical speed, throttle, brake, or something similar like that. And we'll say we wanted to analyze their 2 fastest laps. We'd go up to here, data, I would click whichever one I want to be my reference lap. So maybe I'll have Sage's fastest lap here, and then I can overlay another lap on that. So that I can press this white overlay button. I can overlay 2 different laps if I wanted to, but usually you'll just do one. And you can see if we go, so double click on that, you can see our lap here, and we have overlaid each of their channels. Now this is where it's important to usually have it in distance. So if we change that to time, you can see how it becomes offset the further along the lap we go, since one driver was faster than the other. So I'll go back up here to time distance. So our reference lap, Sage's lap time, you can see his traces are colored. Sometimes it's easier to have these as a single color, so I can click this single color for main button up here. Now I could say to Sage, your lap is all the red trace. So it's easy for him to understand. It's easy for me to understand. So that's, yeah, we can analyze it in that particular way, looking where one driver is quicker than the other, and help the other driver improve. Another tool that we can use is a track map. Now in the standard version of the MoTeC software, you have to go to track report here. And it's actually a little bit glitchy sometimes, so hopefully it opens. Alright, so you can see our track report here. I want to only have one section of my track, so I've generated that track while I only have one section of my data present. So now what I have here is I've opened up a track report. It's been set up as I previously had it. So I'll just redo that now. So I'm going to turn my data overlay off in my data tab. And how I would set this up is I would right click anywhere on our screen, go to properties. I would choose what channel I want to track and what channel I want to create notes for. So I'd choose, so I'll remove those for now. Then I'll go add, click here to select a channel. You can track whatever channel you want. The typical one you'll normally want to do is the speed, so the corrected speed. I'll add that to my notes and add that to my what color I'm tracking. And then in here you can change, what color you want the gradient to be, etc. I'll do that, and that has given me this track where I can kind of look around where the car's achieving its speed, where it's going fast, where it's going slow, and I could compare 2 of these side by side to see kind of where one driver might be faster than the other. All right. Another tool that we could use is something called a scatter plot. So now if I make my new worksheet, again to do that, I'll just right click here and go new worksheet. But I'll use this one I already made. I right click anywhere on the screen, I go add. And so interestingly, if I go to try and make my track report like I had in my previous one, it'll tell me that this version only allows a maximum of 1 track report. That's because it's on the standard MoTeC software. So if it ever pops up with anything like that, that's why it is. But I should be able to add a scatter plot. Only allows a maximum of 2. Okay. Delete that worksheet, and I'll add a scatter plot. Now what you can use this for is to create a traction circle using your G-force data. So if I add my longitudinal on the y-axis and my lateral on the x-axis, press OK, I can see then this is over 1 lap, I can see where all the different data points collected, the lateral and longitudinal G-forces at each. So this could be useful to analyze perhaps 2 drivers against each other. If one driver, say, is in a smaller portion of the circle, they might not be using the full extent of the grip of the car. Or it could also be useful, say you add an aero package or something similar, you could see how that might change your traction circle if your car has more grip or anything like that. You can see obviously at the moment, because our longitudinal G-force hasn't been scaled properly, it's not zeroed at the center there. All right, so that's just a few of the different tools that we can use. There's so many other tools out there that we can use for data analysis. And I recommend having a play around with the MoTeC software for one. The team has also purchased 2 data analysis courses through Racecraft, which are available for you to watch, and they go through a lot of other different methods we can use to improve driver or car performance using data analysis. Alright, so that's all for this video. In the next video, we'll look at how we can use data analysis with our simulator. So thanks for watching.